Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast on Prince. My name is Michael Dean. You can see that I am not alone today. I'm joined not by special guests, but by hosts. And let me start with the ladies first. Taunja, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Thanks for coming on.
Finally.
Also, we have with us, y'all already see him over there, Troy Gua. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing well, Michael. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about this. It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing today is we're going to be talking about the styles of Prince. We're not going to be able to cover everything in this first episode, but we want to just start from the top and really just kind of take a look at some of his style choices. What did they mean in terms of for us? Can we spot any influences that may have influenced Prince to do some of these styles, and just sort of how do they play today? So with that said, first thing I want to do though is ask you guys this question. When you think of Prince and style, what is the first thing that always comes to your mind? Like, it's the thing that's sort of imprinted in your mind of when you think of the Prince. I hate to say the Prince look, but in terms of the visual of Prince, what does that aesthetic mean to you? And I'll start with Taunja.
It's evolving. I mean, there's really not one aesthetic. Evolving, iconic, groundbreaking. There's so many words you can use to describe it because he never really followed anyone else. He was trend. He was always a trend. He did whatever he wanted to do whenever he wanted to do it. Yes, there were different eras of influence that kind of made decisions for him because that's just how fashion works and what's available to you. But for the most part, he took whatever he wanted and ran with it.
Okay. I feel you on that. Mr. Troy, sir, what do you say?
I mean, if we're thinking about like the first image, for me, it's the purple trench coat. It's just, it's like the stamp, the iconic. And, of course he was completely eclectic, but I mean, that's the first thing I saw him in. So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
The 1999 video and the purple trench coat.
It's probably, I think, a visual that is probably the most sort of, is it mainstream or most recognizable?
Most recognizable for sure.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would say the same. But I think for me personally, when I think of Prince, the stuff that I think of the things that I like. So for me, it is always probably like Under the Cherry Moon Prince, just because it just had such a impact on me because it was so different from the Purple Rain that I knew at the time. And I just was like, I remember seeing him like that. And I just couldn't believe. I was like, wow, like that's the same guy. Like, how did he transform himself into this? It just seemed like a whole different person. And at the time I was so fascinated by it. But that's the thing that always for me personally, but I could recognize for most people, it might be like, the coat, the trench.
I mean, it's just, the question was, what's the first image that pops into your head?
Sure.
Right? So that's, I can't help it. It's just, 13-year-old.
Oh yeah. The eyeliner. And these are things I had no idea what they were at the time. I just was like, how is he born looking like that? I didn't know it was wearing makeup and stuff.
But you know what, Michael, and speaking back about Under the Cherry Moon, I think that's one of the times that we actually saw him titter between his own personal imagery and also playing with where he was and building upon a certain era and time and space of where,
like France in the 40s type.
Right.
Throw that in the mix.
But putting his own twist to it. I loved it.
Yeah. And, I didn't anticipate to go this way, but just to think about it, I also think that plays into when I think of Prince imagery is I have to almost kind of I'm going to throw Michael Jackson in here for a second, just to say at the time when these guys were out, to see, black men that looked like that, it was, for me as a kid, they looked unlike any man I had seen in my personal life. And of course, you know, they had various particular imagery with their looks. So that I didn't understand at the time that they were like making themselves look like that. They didn't naturally look like that, right? Michael Jackson had constructed an image for himself with the hair was a big deal. The facial look, I didn't understand at the time how his face was looking different from the Jacksons. You know, I was just like, wow, it was fascinating. Same with Prince. Like I became aware of Prince more so in the Purple Rain stuff, but I had seen pictures of him. I just didn't know who he was. But even looking at how it seemed like his transitions or the way his stuff would just becoming, I guess, more refined. You know what I mean? And I think both of them, image-wise, it was a very conscious thing that I noticed, like, yeah, these guys look totally different. And as a teen, I wanted to try and emulate that, you know.
So did I.
Right. We all in certain aspects, but I had no idea that, yeah, these guys are masters of makeup, or they got people that are working for them. They got masters of hairdressers and on all this stuff, not understanding what it took to be like that, but it was so influential as well. So with that said, and those are all great answers, by the way, let's want to show some imagery of some early Prince and sort of let's, you know, get our comments and things. So going all the way back to early Prince, I think this picture sort of comes from maybe 78 era, maybe even and before.
I think it's 78.
78. So this is, you know, this to me looks like, you know, before the bag, you know, before the pampering and before, you know, just like this is raw. He's got the afro, very much looks like the 70s. In my jokey joke mind, I look at this, I'm like, man, is this an extra from the movie The Warriors or something like?
Really?
Or like Welcome Back, Kotter.
There you go. Like that's but that's the style of that time,
totally.
Right? What do you guys think about
disco? You know,
okay,
leather jackets, right? I think in a promo, I noticed that you alluded to Superfly.
Yes, I have that in here. Absolutely.
And in prepping for this, I rewatched it, and the very first scene focuses on Ron O'Neal's Ankh necklace, and I was like, oh, you can directly like trace that right to a picture of Prince with an Ankh symbol around his neck and the leather jacket. So yeah, we can see kind of that influence for sure, right?
Yeah, you know what you can see on this to me too? This is Purple Rain.
Totally.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I also think that he was a fan of film and black. I can't, I'm wait a minute, tongue tied, so I know you can edit this out.
What are you trying to say?
Black exploitation film was huge back then, right?
Yeah.
So you have to know that because he was such a film buff, that this had to influence his style. It influenced everyone's style.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Like that's to me, that's the.
But hey,
you know, you can definitely see. I see like a younger Ron O'Neal, more a flyer version. What is that here? Is that I would call it the Farrah Fawcett, but I mean, what is that?
It was a Farrah Fawcett flip.
Okay. Farrah Fawcett
with a Vigorol perm in it.
What's that? Vigorol?
Wow.
Oh my God. Every Black child in the U.S. had to deal with a Vigorol perm back then. And
is that a brand horrible name?
Yes, it's a brand name. It smelled horrible, but it got your hair straight.
That's so funny because like my mom and her friends would do the same thing to make their hair curly.
Curly, right.
And it smelled awful. And it was like a whole day process.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
He had a straight Vigorol that was going, and that gave him the straight, bouncy, fluid, like flip that blew with the wind.
I mean, and this is what 79. I take first album. What kind of cat though So I see somebody, you have to be like so confident. I am assuming you got to be like so confident with yourself to just come out like, I mean, unless that was the style brothers was getting at. You know, I wasn't around that time, so it's hard for me to know, but
they were.
My number one question when thinking about early Prince and the early looks that he was wearing is the leg warmers. And I'm wondering, is that a Midwest thing? Did other dudes do that over their jeans? Did they wear leg warmers? Or, I mean, because I've never seen any other man do that. And I was like, how did that come about? And I'm thinking, he's laying around with his girlfriend. He's messing around and puts on her clothes. Ooh, that's hot. I don't know. I'm thinking, how does this stuff come about? Like, how do you decide to wear gym shorts and suspenders?
You know, Troy, I really think this comes from the whole disco roller skate era.
The suspenders.
Okay.
Yeah, because
that
was your era.
Yeah. I didn't think about the whole roller skate part, right?
Does that include the leg warmers?
Yeah, because that was kind of like the cool look back then to wear leg warmers. Like, I know in DC, and now I'm aging myself.
Okay,
that was a thing.
Did dudes wear leg warmers?
Not really, but I mean, it was
putting on something that another won't did.
Right. So I mean, he crossed those boundaries.
Well, and that's they always when they asked him, it was like because girls love it. It was like
right.
And so I'm wondering, well, how did he know that girls love? Like, somehow at some point. He had to like wear it the first time, and
somebody,
someone had to react.
Now you brought up the leg warmers and the roller skate thing. See, in my mind, I always think of leg warmers. Was it like flash dance or something?
Yeah,
it was like real big at a time. It was everybody had to have leg warmers on.
Yeah, and like Jane Fonda.
Okay, yeah. That was like the aerobics,
all that.
Jazzercise. Yeah. So I know some of y'all was like, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Go on Google. Go and do their research.
Yeah, go on Google and type in leg warmers, jazz. What do they call it? Jazz what?
Jazz, like aerobics, jazzercise.
Jazzercise.
I remember my mom used to do that. That was the thing, like for a while. Like you had to have your videotape.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If your parents or whoever put the videotape in. I remember just sitting back watching my mom. She had her leotard.
Yeah,
I was like, hilarious.
So I've also been thinking about like where did he? So the first couple of images you showed, that's very masculine. Like at some point,
where did he kind of switch over?
When did he start playing with that?
That's a good question. When the first time when did you first notice? I mean, I guess
it's that picture right there.
But the thing is, I was not cognizant of this look of Prince back then with the shorts. If I'm not mistaken, there is an alternate take or alternate video of "I Want to Be Your Lover" where he wears this or something similar to this.
Blue. He's got blue. A blue.
Yeah. I wonder, was that a look he was going for, and then somebody. That might be
that's a little too far.
I think that look sort of evolved into the Dirty Mind look, right? This was like
yes.
Maybe the safer version, which not really, but
interesting. Yeah, this is another.
And there you go. Yeah, there's the evolution right there. It's like, okay, let's do.
And look at that flip. Like that's just the perfect flip.
It is.
It's so funny. I have a picture of my mom right here with that same flip.
Wow. Even then, I mean, even with, I will say to me, that's a wild attire. But even like you said, the hair, immaculate. You see that there is that level of, my stuff got to be tight. Whatever I'm doing, it's going to be tight to just best of my ability and my pay scale.
Every detail. And I think, I don't know, somebody said one time that like his style, like his taste never changed. He just got more money. So the fabrics became more expensive.
Yeah.
But he always had that, wild fashion streak, I suppose.
Yes.
I mean, even, those pictures we got kind of recently of him, his yearbook, and he's like 8 or whatever. He's got an ascot. He's like collar. He's 8 years old.
Styling, yeah. But yeah, again, just to bring up this picture again, to me, this is just another one of those Ron O'Neal, Superfly,
totally
kind of look, a sort of alternate takeoff of the album version. But one thing I will say here, to me, I actually like this picture better. To me, how do I say that? It was a handsome brother right here. It's like you can see where he has come from. Like I said, the style got more refined. He started maybe understanding contouring and or just like, okay, how do I position my look, my face? How do I look in certain lights and stuff? And I'm just like, man, such an early on, he started to really understand the visual aspect. And then he went crazy with it. I went to town with it, like experimenting and like, okay, yeah, they like that. Watch, I'm gonna really flip it. And the fact that we all know Prince pushed the envelope with the looks. He wasn't just coming out, I got fresh kicks, or no, I'm putting on some stuff that you're gonna question what the hell's going on. And I'm sure he's playing into that, but I mean, we want to speak on that too. Like,
I don't think folks these days really can understand how crazy and how far he was pushing the envelope, because everything is so wild, and like there is no hold barred nowadays, that they don't understand that 40 years ago this was a huge deal to wear reefs on stage. That was like, what?
Right. And then you have to also think that it was the height of the Soul Train era too. So Soul Train was a huge influence just on Black imagery, Black fashion. It was basically our Bible for everything, for dance, for fashion, for hair. It was people in LA that, were doing stuff a little prior to anyone else would. I will say New York is always, like, to me, the fashion place in the US that really, really sets the stamp on who you look to for trends and for eras and things of that sort. But I think Soul Train put that West Coast kind of flip to it. Cool. With some of that Chicago style to it thrown in. So you had the suits, you had the big hair, you had, the different prints inside of your suits, the linings, contrast to everything else. Because when they were dancing, their jackets were like swinging. You could see like the different prints and things. But I think all of that was heavily influenced how his styles evolved and changed, and how they looked.
That's interesting about Soul Train, because like you said, everything you said about it in terms of how it influenced, it was such a we didn't have a lot of choices to see things, and for that to be on TV and was syndicated for all of us to see. That almost it did what like sort of the internet does later. It is able to expose these different looks and styles to other regions of the country, and then the influences took, and then those parts of the country took it and spun it and did their thing, and that spawned something else. But yeah, that Soul Train was such a, it's just like I guess like what MTV became later, or even things like, to me, that Motown 25 show.
Yeah,
we all watched it because you didn't have nothing else to watch, so you had a captive audience, and so we all were going to be influenced by it. The Purple Rain.
All going to talk about it the next day.
Yeah, the Purple Rain, the movie, and like the premiere. What else were you going to watch?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're all locked into it and all being like, whoa, and Prince pushing his ideology, or his, it's like coming into Prince's sort of universe and seeing what that was, and be like, wow, I almost didn't know this existed. This is a whole world here. I want to be like that. That's fascinating, and being influenced by that style. And so I can imagine like Prince and Andre and all those guys in Minneapolis all sort of being funneled through the same thing of their influencers coming into them, like, and then how do they react to it? And inadvertently, they're not even knowing that that sort of small, out of the way kind of town is going to influence the whole freaking world. Like, you know what I mean? It's so interesting.
Yeah,
it is. And you had to think back in that era too, a lot of people made their own clothes. There was a lot of homemade stuff that was going on. As far as even detailing, like you had to think about the studded jean jackets. I don't know if anyone else's mom had the stud gun and like studded up your jackets. And
my mom made all our clothes.
Yeah, and my mom made our clothes too. We had like matching. They weren't matchy, but you know, she would make like a skirt, and I would have like the matching jacket or something that was coordinated. But yeah, it was cool then. But that was a part of expression. I mean, it was the 70s, early 80s. Everyone was on the height of self-expression right then. You're coming out of the whole 60s love era, going into the 70s, which is kind of tittering into the disco era. And everyone wanted to be different and unique. And the only way to really do that is to make your own things.
Right. And that's what I was going to say, because you're about the Soul Train influence, definitely, you know, clearly. But then I think he was like, well, let's make a right turn. They're going left. I'm going to take a right. You know, he always wanted to do what nobody else was doing, or take what they were doing and like freak it out and make it his own. So
yeah,
I think that's, you know,
and
I think that his girlfriends, I still kind of want to go back to like where did the femininity come in? And I really feel like his girlfriends at the time influenced that. And I wish there was some way we could get some kind of confirmation.
Yeah.
But I know. And Andre's sister also did have
Sylvia, I believe, made the clothes.
Also, right? So I mean, you got to think about that too. And then it's funny how style evolves, because I would say then there was a very fine line between masculinity and the feminine aspect of clothing, where there were some influences from women's clothes that also tittered over to men. And then it changed to straight. This is what men wear, you know, for the longest time. And now think about it now. We're back to where they were in the 70s, as far as there's not a very defined line between men's fashion and women's fashion.
There's hardly any
There's no lines now.
I don't think there's a line anymore.
Yeah, see, now you're making me, I mean, I want to share something else. Let's see here. If I can do this on the fly. Here we go. We'll just keep it raw. So I wanted to show, like Rick. But then it makes you think of the looks of artists back then, like Cameo, Rick James. Obviously, I think all of those guys are sort of coming off of the heels of Parliament Funkadelic.
I was going to say that.
Really pushed it out.
And Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Exactly.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yes. It's almost like they were like costumes.
Right.
In a sense. Almost like they were superhero costumes, but they wouldn't wear that outside of the stage.
Right. It was stage wear.
Exactly. But I feel like Prince, I might not be the only person, but it was really one of the people I think you can kind of tell, like, he's wearing that all the time. Like,
that's,
you know what I mean? There's no differentiating between the stage and the actual thing. And I bring in all this in just a conversation to say, I thought Prince on some levels too, when you see this with hip hop, you know, hip hop artists also dressed in these very similar Rick James type. You know, remember Soul Sonic Force, and they had, you know, Melly Mel. They was
Furious Five. That's
Furious
true.
Five. Yeah, they had all of this stuff. But then, you know, the next wave was, well, man, we're gonna wear what we wear on the streets. It still can be fly, but it's not a costume. It's the everyday thing. And I kind of feel Prince was both of those. He took the out there attire, but was like, nah, I'm gonna make this so I'm gonna still wear this on the street. Like,
that's right.
I'm still fly and I'm still cutting edge, but I look like, but with the sort of air of Parliament or Rick James or, you know, Earth, Wind and Fire.
I think Rick was highly influenced by Prince.
You do?
You think Rick was influenced by Prince?
I really do.
Interesting. Okay.
I think when you start looking at his imagery before he brought Prince on tour with him and post that time, you can see where he was kind of mad. I mean, we all knew he was mad because Prince stole the show from him, right?
Okay.
And how I think that out of that friendly competition, I mean, even look at this image here compared to Rick James to what Prince has on, right? And then if you go into later images of Rick James, he starts looking more like Prince to me, as far as taking that.
Well, yeah, because I can see in one of those he's got the ruffles on. Yeah.
Right.
I think after Purple Rain, definitely you can see.
Yeah.
I would not argue, but I would think that Rick, though, I could see how Rick may have influenced Prince's early, his looks after going on tour with Rick and sort of seeing like, oh, you can actually wear some of this stuff, but I can see it both ways, obviously, But they're very similar. I always feel like to a lot of degree Rick doesn't get as, I don't know. To me, Rick James and Prince are very similar, though in that era. Let me be clear.
Yes.
Just musically, the aesthetic, you know, they have very similar type of band, you know, the girl bands and some of the same women.
They were totally like poking at each other.
It's like, here's the young upstart kind of taking my thing. God damn,
taking my shine.
Right.
And you know, there has to play, and we won't get into it, but there's always the light skinned dude and the darker skin guy. I think that aesthetic. Oh, I think it played heavy. At least I think in Rick's mind and a lot of people's, I can see, especially back then.
Rick just saw Rick finally had that solo person that was coming for him. I mean, so the whole, but that's a whole nother conversation. We can have.
Actually, talking about clothes.
I can go down a whole rabbit hole with the girl groups, with Vanity Six, with the Mary Jane girls. Like,
but
that was my first concert I ever went to. I saw Prince when he opened up for Rick James.
What?
Yeah.
What was that? So you can't just throw that out there.
I know she's.
So I won a bet. I was only 12. Well, I'm not gonna say how old I was. Well, I already did.
12 years. Let's see. As a parent, at 12 years old. Whoa.
Yes. So I won a bet. My mom told me if I got straight A's, I could go see Prince. But I was deeply in love with Prince at 10 years old. Like from Soft and Wet, from the first single.
What area? Where did you live? What area?
In Washington, D.C.
Okay.
But I had my mom and my dad were total creatives, deep into music. I always went to concerts, so it wasn't like anything different.
Okay.
But I won a bet. My stepbrother had to take me to go see Prince open up for Rick James. He was mad. I was happy. But yes, little 12-year-old me went to go see Prince open up for Rick James. I cannot tell you details about it. I've had a conversation with one of my good friends about memory recall when it comes to Prince concerts. I don't have any, and it's strange. And Troy, I think we talked about it too for a second. It's one of those things that you're so engulfed in the moment till the details become very blurry. And I really cannot give you like blow by blow details of what happened.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because, and I want to go back to your story. I never thought of it like that, but that is exactly what I have when I think of Prince concerts. I really can't remember the specifics of them.
Right.
I remember how I feel or I
Right.
felt, but I can't remember like.
That's a trip, huh?
Yeah.
It's like a
wow.
You're in such a Zen mode, and you're in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation. Rabbit hole. Look, we got 3 different rabbit holes to go down just talking fashion.
Right. Yeah, but that's interesting because I always try to remember the Love Sexy show, and I can't.
I can't either.
Yeah, I was so like
in awe. I know.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah,
Did I ever tell you that I wrote a review of it for my high school newspaper? And I think partly that was the reason I did that was so that I could like get it out while I could still like recall it. I think I probably wrote it that same night. I was so like insane with.
I assume you went to the one
fervor
in Seattle, right?
Yeah,
and that's funny that we were at the same show.
I know, right?
Yeah. Wow, interesting.
Yeah, that.
But take us back. So, how if you don't remember the detail? I mean, how did you feel seeing Prince and Rick James?
It was crazy because I want to say that was like my second concert. My first concert I ever went to go see was my first love was, I'm going to admit, it was Michael. I mean,
you saw Michael Jackson?
I saw the Jackson 5 and Johnny Guitar Watson.
Oh, wow. Right. That's right.
Opened up for them. That was my very, very, very first concert.
That's amazing.
And my mom wanted to see. So the thing was, my mom wanted to see these concerts too. So she was
not down with Rick James.
She wasn't down for Rick James like that. But to see the Jackson 5, yes. So we saw the Jackson 5. So that was my very first concert. And from then on, I had just been a concert goer my entire life. And I want to say that Rick James Prince concert probably was my second concert that I went to. And then from then on, it was just go. Like concerts, I was known as the girl who went to all the concerts. And we're going to go to the concerts with Taunja because her dad or her mom is going to drop us off and we're going to go.
She's going to get us up front.
Yes. I would make my way. But that concert was, I wish I had detail. But I was there. I was there.
You know that Black Mirror episode where it's like DVD memories?
Right.
Rewind and relive your memories.
I wish I could. I wish I could speak of memory of events that happened during his concerts, but I don't. There has to be a study done about this that tells you why you don't hold on to that, except for the thing that you are so engulfed in the moment.
Yeah, it's funny when you said that about the DVD and the memory recall thing. I wonder though how that would change us if we could just always, or I guess if we didn't have to try to remember everything, you could just pull it all up. And
that's an interesting question because it's kind of already like that with phone numbers. All the stuff we used to memorize, like we don't need to memorize anything. All the stuff that we like almost school almost doesn't need to happen because it's all on the internet. I'm not saying school doesn't, you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah.
It's like you don't need to remember everything because it's all right here.
Right.
Now see, that's a rabbit hole.
Right. Yeah, right.
It's like we don't need school anymore. You can look it all up. Well, what would
I
that
didn't say that.
Society?
I remember like on the last Michael Bland conversation, he was all like, I don't know how much I should say because I started reading the comments last time and I can so I don't take that anybody with it. I did not say
we need education.
but it will see we're gonna go down the rabbit hole for a second. But it is an interesting thought though, like if I guess logically to me it would make me say, well, if you can have all the information there, Well, I guess the answer would be, well, what if the power went out, right?
That's the thing. What happens if we completely lose the
right? You don't know nothing. It's like you can't look it up. It's off. I guess that's how warfare would probably happen, right? It would just attack the infrastructure, because if they're so reliant on electronics, you cut that out, their society crumbles. Like,
technology, man, if we lose technology.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Which goes, I'm gonna tie it back to Prince. Like in terms, I guess, like being a musician or being a creative, period. You do have to work at that. You do have to foster those skills. You do get better. You can't let the machine make the song, right? Like, because if the power goes out, who's gonna play the song? Who's gonna
right?
So that's, I guess on some level, we still need to learn and do things as human beings. Because,
you know, I thought about, okay, this is even, I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Another rabbit hole, Troy?
I was thinking about, you know, like there are some artists, some painters that are like super traditional, old school, and they like, you know, they wrap their own canvases and they create their own pigments and all this. And I was thinking, like, not that he should have, but I was thinking, wouldn't it have been cool if Prince, as the ultimate musician, like knew how to like make by hand a guitar?
Wow.
Like, you know, if he built his own instrument, not that he needed to have another skill, but I was just imagining.
That would be hardcore. Like that. That's the Jedi. That's like you have to make your own lightsaber.
Weapon,
make your own guitar, right?
Yeah.
Now that would be a cold Prince. When you got in the band, he's like, "Do you know how to make a bass guitar?"
Yeah, you're gonna need to make your own bass, and I'll see you tomorrow at this time.
But you know what, Troy? So that goes back into the fashion, right? So I wanted to know, like, in those earlier stages, like, how much hands-on work did he do with creating those outfits? Because you can tell they're bits and pieces of fabric or pieces that were already created that he embellished, that he changed some things to. So I wonder, did he sit with a thread and needle? Did he have a sewing machine? Like, did somebody help him pick out some extra fabrics to add to it, and then he went home and added the fur or added the leopard print, or you know, that's the kind of things I would like to know. Did he do?
Right. Well, I think about like the first concerts at the Capri Theater and what he was wearing, and that looks to me like someone's mom's sweater.
Right.
And I think a lot of the stuff may have had to do with the fact of like his size. Like he fit women's clothes a lot easier than men's clothes probably at the time. And he probably didn't want to go shopping in the boys department. I don't know. His girlfriend's stuff was right there. And it was, I don't know, like at what point was he like, let's start shocking people?
Yeah, because you can see some of the concerts from that second album. He's definitely very flamboyant styles already. You know, before Dirty Mind, where in my mind I always think it starts with Dirty Mind, but it almost looks like
it's that zebra stripe two-piece situation.
And maybe there's some, I don't know if there's other artists or things at that time that sort of maybe spoke to that kind of style. And some people bring up David Bowie. I'm not as affluent in David Bowie at that time, but
I was gonna say Betty Davis.
Betty Davis, okay.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Betty freaking Davis. You know, I can go down a rabbit hole about that.
That I just popped into my head, and I bet that was a big style influence on him.
Hell yeah. And I never, thank you, Troy. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow. Now I can't get that out of my head, Troy. Thank you.
As the mic dropped.
Right.
Even the motorcycle photo shoot with her and
the hair. The hair alone.
Yeah, the hair. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And then Troy, thank you.
What am I wrong to think, and I've never actually seen this movie, I've seen it because I was a kid and we're younger, and I know how popular it was. But for some reason, I think of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
What's that? That's the guy. I don't.
Frankenfurter. Dr. Frankenfurter. Okay. Tim Curry. Yes.
Interesting.
That had to be an influence too, because that was like huge underground.
Okay.
Hit, right at that time, you know,
I just remember seeing the imagery of that guy, and I'm thinking I could see kind of some Prince thing in there. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
I've heard that actually before too, and yeah, I think that is pretty accurate.
Okay.
And maybe that's like the beginning of like the fishnets, lace, camisole stuff too, really.
Interesting. Was there, just because we're speaking about this time frame, was there there had to be an influence, this might sound odd to some people, but John Travolta. Like, he was such, he was an iconic figure at that time. I mean, some of the most popular movies of dance.
Yeah.
And things. Like, when I look, I will say in terms of Prince, we've heard the conversations that they, you know, when Purple Rain is being talked about to be made, somebody's like, yo, John Travolta can be the lead guy in this. Oh, yeah. That sounds crazy now, but actually, if you think of it back then, I can see why somebody would say that, only because of his movies were, I mean,
they were the biggest hits out.
And he was doing singing and dancing.
Yeah.
And you can see very much how he influenced Michael Jackson, actually. I think. You look at early Michael's, he's doing John Travolta stuff.
Totally. And then the white suit.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, I don't know if that affects Prince at all. I know some people, I know the comments are,
I know, because I'm going to totally disagree with
you. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that, again, back to Soul Train.
Okay.
Back to that area. I think that all influenced John Travolta. Like, come on now, you were talking about Black culture. Who doesn't emulate what we do naturally? Like, I mean,
absolutely. No, and you're right. I guess I'm saying, but John Travolta would be, I guess, the Elvis, or y'all can hate me again, he would be the Bruno. And I love Bruno, but I'm just saying, in terms of mainstream visibility, he has taken those influences that you mentioned from those other Black things, but because of who he's given the spotlight to do it. And so he is going to influence people as well. And I'm just saying, some people probably have only I think a lot of people who are not into Soul Train, they probably only saw the John Travolta stuff and thought that it all sort of came from that. And they were wrong. But I'm just saying, like, the influence is there. But now I'm just throwing it out.
I get where you're going now.
Oh yeah, trust me, I'm not saying y'all gonna eat me up. I already know.
I mean, everybody was wearing leather jackets and those butterfly collar satin shirts in 1977. I mean,
right? Yeah, and you know,
I wasn't, but my brother was.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess I don't know if that's everything we want to cover in this particular one. We're just kind of staying early, because once you get into Dirty Mind, it's over. You know, we're gonna go in, and then when you get into, and we're gonna have some good conversations. So, you know, this Dirty Mind, Controversy, 1999. That's sort of really where that imagery that's long lasting sort of really starts to set in. And then Purple Rain, and then after Purple Rain, I always call after Purple Rain, I got my money up. Like, I'm about to really floss on you niggas right now. When I go to Europe, it's over. That's when at that point, it was over.
The game was over. It started around that night. Well, we're going to start talking about that. But right around 1999, you saw that the fabrication changed, the tailoring changed, the fit changed for him totally. You could tell. I think
it sparked off with Dirty Mind, though. Like, it was refined.
Definitely.
It was that look refined.
It was
to
like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, I'm done with that.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when it became like the total flip. Yeah, it was like next year.
That's when it was like every album something new, new wardrobe. Yeah, I'm the best.
It was. And you know what else was a great era for me? I would say like his last, I hate even saying that. And I get kind of choked up even trying to say it. But those last couple of years when he started wearing Balmain and just started going super high end, like fashion, like woo! I can't wait to start talking about that, because that's that era when I think he really dove into, he kind of went away from fashion and he just went head on in and just started really working with some great design houses. And it just makes me think, like, where would it have evolved to right now, you know?
I almost want to ask that question and go into that. Oh yeah, where would it have went to? The fact that the hair came back to where it started, I thought was, I never would have thought that. Like, yeah, that's. I always have envisioned though of Prince too. If I could have saw him being the super contrarian, to just cut it all off. Like you know what I mean? Because that's the last thing you would ever think him to do.
I know, but he never did it. I thought he would have done that already. But
like, I could just see him show up on some show. And you're like, is that
he would do that?
All with a big beard or something. Oh, and just as hard as he was meticulously constructing things, he would, the opposite was like, I don't give a fuck. Come on, I mean? Yeah, I don't give a fuck. And be that older. But again, I'm just dreaming. You never know. Who knows?
Alternate universe.
It's always the what ifs, right?
Yeah. But,
Bizarro world.
But let's end
where Prince wears flannel.
Right. From Target.
Hilarious. Yeah. He really goes.
I know, that's what I'm saying. No.
We'll talk about that later.
Yes.
Lord. But to end it, I wanted to say this though. We just got to recognize this. Prince, it's an understatement. Prince was like none other. And we're not going to walk out of here today and not keep pushing that line, because it's easy to take it for granted. But that dude was on another level musically, fashion, the performance, just the attitude. And that's why the three of us can come together like this. The life experience that we've had listening to this music, watching this man, has so much infused into what we do, and just the camaraderie of that, again, that Prince universe is why we can have these podcasts and stuff. So we're not going to never not like recognize, like, we're talking about some great shit. We're talking about a guy that was on top of it on all levels, and you can see that in what these guys do, and that's just want to be sure we acknowledge that. So
yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for acknowledging that.
It brought us together.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Prince introduced me to my best friends. So
yeah.
And for those who don't know, we didn't do it at the top. We'll give a little bit about yourselves as well. We'll start with Taunja. Taunja, you don't have to be modest. You know?
I am going to be very modest.
But tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm a native third generation Washingtonian, which is something that's not even said too much anymore. Living in Washington, D.C., was in Atlanta for over 20 something years. Have worked in the fashion industry for over 20 years, in both retail sector and high-end luxury. Right now, I work with visual artists. And I have a company that's called Tap Creatives, and I help visual artists find other means to bring in revenue besides just selling work. So work with licensing deals, getting stuff placed in film and television and things of that sort. And I just wrapped up working with one of the largest African-American film festivals, Martha's Vineyard African-American Film Festival. As you saw, we opened up with the Obamas, and that was the first time that they have been seen together since he left office. And then we closed with Spike Lee supposedly only showing clips of his new documentary on Kaepernick, and ended up showing the whole uncut film.
Wow, really? Wow.
Yeah. And guess who didn't see a second of it?
Or you was working? Oh, wow.
When you're working festivals like that, you don't have a second to do nothing but run around and make sure that everything that people see looks perfect. So yeah, but I can't wait for everybody to see that.
Awesome, man. Salute to you. That's dope.
Thank you.
That's dope. Troy, I think I heard about you, but I don't know.
Troy,
I make stuff.
I'm the president of the Guaettes, just to let y'all know. I'm watching y'all.
Well, you do more than make stuff, sir.
Well,
I mean, what do you make? What are some of the things
do I make? I make.
Can you see that wall back there?
What's that?
I said, can you see that wall back there? Yeah. He made.
Well,
for those who do not know, what is on what is that wall back there?
Okay, yeah. For those who do not know who I am the creator of a project called Le Petit Prince, also known as LPP. It is a miniature prince that I have cultivated over a decade now, and it's a photographic series using the miniature as the subject, recreating moments in Prince's life that mean so much to us because we got to witness some of these moments. And I'm also trying to just tell his story by capturing moments we didn't witness and weren't there to see. And yeah, I mean, that's how probably the folks watching this are going to know me best. And I do lots of other things. I'm a visual artist of as many different mediums as I can get my hands on. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And
a visual artist and a mural. You've done murals too, right?
Absolutely.
No, I have never done a mural.
Well, you've got stuff. I can walk around the city and there's his work on buildings and stuff. Like
yeah, Troy's being a little humble right now.
That's what my
Troy is
brought me up to be.
Great creative, and not even just with LPP and with your art. I mean, look at the creations that you do of clothing, Troy.
Oh yeah.
The dope vest that we debuted at the Prince Experience. Right?
I mean, I'm a creative dude that has pretty much my whole life been inspired by Prince and his work ethic and his ability to jump from genre to genre and make it his own, and to continually grow and be curious about creating. And he's my biggest inspiration, always has been. And probably, well, I can't see anybody else being a bigger inspiration. So.
And what about you, Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Man, just doing my little podcast thing here. Same way, just influenced by the work ethic, the music, and just want to give back and show some respect to, I would say, one of our legends, man. Like every generation has their guy, at least that's how I think. And for me, that was Prince. Like it's nothing ever, there's nothing like it, you can take anything from it. And if you apply any of these sort of principles to anything that you do, you're going to get some results and you're going to get good at something. So
exactly.
That's how I look at it. But with that said, we're gonna get up out of here. This has been great. Hopefully these guys have enjoyed this. I've enjoyed it. I'm so glad they've agreed to come on and chop it up with me to talk about this subject, switching up the style, talking about Prince's looks. We will be back. Please let us know in the comments what you thought about this. If there's things you want us to talk about specifically next, let us know. We'll jump into some of those. But like I always say, work it like a job. We'll see you next time. Peace.